So today I'm going to be reviewing the anime Black Lagoon, including the first 2 seasons as well as the OVA Roberta's Blood Trail. The original 2 seasons were 24 episodes long and aired throughout 2006, while Roberta's Blood Trail, a 5-episode OVA, 33 minutes per episode more or less, aired throughout 2010 through 2011. So in a nutshell, the story is about a group of bandits in a fictional city called Roberta in China, who one day stick up a ship and take a hostage, only for that hostage to later join their crew, the Lagoon Company. Now, I've heard about Black Lagoon for years and how awesome it is, but in all honesty, a simple synopsis and dude, it's awesome was just not enough for me to get into it because of the plot sounding so simplistic. Black Lagoon doesn't really have an overall ongoing plot, and for the most part tackles each heist and robbery as they come along per arc. Our main cast are Rock, a Japanese businessman who gets captured by the Lagoon Company only to later join them in their world of piracy. Revy, a foul-mouthed, kick-ass, Chinese-American, badass female that will tell you how it is and kick your ass while she's doing it, who by the way loves to smoke cigarettes, drink booze, and get into epically awesome gun battles. Dutch, the leader of the Lagoon Company, he's pretty much a level-headed man who runs things, but for the most part he's into getting his money and getting things done right, but don't cross him or you'll see the wrath. Then there's Benny, he's the tech geek. There's also some pretty awesome reoccurring characters, such as Balalaika, the head of Hotel Moscow, one of the biggest illegal operations in Roberta, as well as Roberta, a psychotic bitch from hell in a maid outfit. This particular series is more so character-driven and focuses mainly on Rock and Revy and their exploits and how, I guess, their relationship develops, as well as just overall as characters they develop throughout the series, and less focuses on an ongoing plot. And that's where some of the downfalls of the series begin. While we learn a ton about those two, Rock and Revy, we barely learn anything about the other 2 main characters, Benny and Dutch, aside from some subtle hints we get about Dutch's past and Roberta's Blood Trail. And while the first 2 seasons is loaded with action-packed gun battles and crazy awesomeness, it definitely lacks in a lot of the departments of character development aside from the main 2. Heck, we learn more about Balalaika and Roberta, 2 reoccurring characters, more so than Benny and Dutch. And seeing as how the overall plot isn't the most complex or deep, I was hoping for a bit more character development driven within all the main cast of characters. But that's not to take away from some of the amazingness of this series. As I've said, it has one of the greatest action-packed sequences in it, and also it just has some of the most badass female characters you will find in any anime. Characters such as Revy, Roberta, Balalaika, all these characters, including many more that you run into, definitely raise the stakes and raise up the bar of what a badass female should be. Heck, this is probably the most badass female-centric anime out there. This is also probably the only anime where nearly every single female is more badass than her male counterpart. Now, as I've said, Rock and Revy, their relationship develops over time, and going a little bit more into it, it's kind of a complex relationship. On one hand, you can kind of say it's open to interpretation, but for the most part, what I see it as is Revy over time comes to look at Rock as a possible escape in the future, where she can settle down and possibly have a good life away from all this, although she never really shows that. It's kind of like you can interpret that. At the same time, Rock, he really never displays any of that emotion of like wanting to be with Revy, but at the very least we can assume he wants to bang her. I mean, come on, any dude in Rock's situation would want to get in the sheets with Revy. And for me personally, that's one of the most interesting things I found about the series is actually their relationship, since it's built up so much throughout the series. Little by little you see them inching towards together, eventually her even claiming that she's his weapon. You kind of got to put more importance into it and kind of pay attention to it a little closely so you can understand the complexities of it. Now, as far as the animation goes, for the first 2 seasons, the animation was okay. Sometimes it could be a little choppy here and there, but it was decent for the first 2 seasons. But in Roberta's Blood Trail, the OVA, the animation is flawless, really awesome, top of the line stuff, and it really just looks beautiful to see some of these epic scenes, epic gun battles in vivid detail. Also, just a quick note to throw in there, for those that don't realize, Roberta's Blood Trail is basically season 3 of the actual series, so do not skip that. It is pretty important. You get to learn a lot more about the characters as well, because it is just an OVA version of season 3. In other words, it continues material from the manga. Some of the arcs in the series definitely can get a little bit crazy, weird, and at times even emotionally unexpected. For example, there's some crazy ancestral vampire-looking twins in one of the arcs, and I definitely say that for the most part you were built up and kind of like get these kids out of here, this is too freaking weird. But towards the end, you actually feel some sympathy for them. And that's just good writing at that point. It's like, you know, to make you change your emotions at the drop of a hat with some characters because of the way they're written, that's pretty good. And again, that goes along with what I was saying earlier, that this series is definitely character driven. Going a little more in depth with Roberta's blood trail, I definitely say the importances of this one is particularly, it gives a little more backstory to certain characters like Balalaika, a little bit more subtle hints towards what Dutch is about, and also it just brings together even closer the relationship between Rock and Revy, and it really is an awesome cap to the anime. Most of the material from Black Lagoon manga has been animated. It is still ongoing, but as of the recording of this video, there's only about 6 or 7 chapters that have been out that have not been animated, so it'll be a while before we get a possible season 4. Not to mention some of the events of Roberta's blood trail towards the end is actually changed for the anime, so I don't know how that would work if they would possibly do an adaptation later on. After watching this anime, I definitely gotta say that nearly each and every female in this series is so badass, to the point that if you have a top 5 epic females anime list, definitely one of these characters better be in there, so you know who needs to remake their list. I mean, goddamn, Revy, Balalaika, and Roberta are hands down freaking epic. The music in this one is definitely a type to get you pumped up for each and every action scene, with a lot of it being upbeat, but at times it can also be depressing, such as the ending where each and every episode in the first 2 seasons ends with this very dark sound where Revy's boots, you just see her walking and eventually she shoots the screen. It really just drags you into this dark world of Rana Pro, where you just see that this world is truly just a cruel world. And that's probably one of the biggest messages I got from this series, is that the world can be very cruel, and sometimes there's not always a black and white line. There's a gray line that you always got to balance on, and if you fall off, you can fall off in the wrong direction. And a lot of the series just really, it might not be the most complex, but if you look into it a little more closely, it definitely has some depth to it. Now, I watched this one in subtitled Japanese language, but I highly recommend you actually check it out in dub, for the simple fact that the story is actually portrayed as if the main language is English and all the characters are speaking in English. So when you're listening to it in Japanese, for the most part, that was created for the Japanese audience so that they can understand it easily, but it's really supposed to be said in English, so I recommend check it out in English. Now, this series is downright an awesome kick-ass blockbuster smash with loads of awesome gun battles, hot babes, loads of crazy heists, and all around crazy epicness. But where overall lacks is the plot not having too much substance, as well as the lack of character development for key characters. Nonetheless, if you want an action-packed adventure, I recommend Black Lagoon. If you want badass females and looking good, I recommend Black Lagoon. But if you're looking for a little bit more complexities and substance to the story, then you probably might not like this one. Overall, I give Black Lagoon a 7.8. Not the greatest series in the world, but definitely a must-watch, and even casual fans can check this one out and still enjoy it, because it really has sort of a Western appeal to it, such as a series like Cowboy Bebop. It really just has this feeling that, like, oh man, I would love to, you know, just be a part of this crazy action adventure, as bloody and gruesome as it may be. And trust me, things can get freaking weird at times. Black Lagoon for the win.